He is kind of grabbing the market by the proverbial by just going straight for it, essentially declaring a trade war. For Trump, the tariff route, the protectionist route is going to end in disaster. I just think he's being very extreme here. We didn't expect him to go this hard this quickly.
We have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd, because, and I'm not referring to Canada, but many countries have taken advantage of us, the likes of which nobody even thought was possible for many, many decades, And, that has to stop.
So when it comes to VAT, as we know, we charge 20% on most goods and services in the UK. There are exemptions, there are actually a lot of exemptions, but the way that the White House is looking at this is basically by saying, because you impose an extra tax on anything a British business or British consumer buys that is American, that counts as a tariff. That is demonstrably false. All other consumers and all other businesses in the UK have to pay that tax, regardless of where the good comes from. So it's just definitely not a tax or tariff targeted against the Americans. The Americans have never been big free traders. It's only really since Ronald Reagan that free trade was a big part of the American economic experience. In many ways, he's reverting to the norm for Republican presidents, but tariffs are never, ever good. They're all are traders, essentially. It's two consenting organizations or consumers and businesses who are mutually agreeing to trade on a good or service, right? A tariff is essentially a politician coming in and saying, I don't like that, hand over some of it, hand over some of that money. It's massive distortion on trade. It increases unemployment, it lowers the resilience that a country has, and it also essentially pushes up prices for consumers at the end. So all a tariff is a big tax. And the Democrats in the US are going to look at this and say, Donald Trump has raised your taxes massively. And even Republican senators in the US Senate are going out and saying there's going to be a bit of pain from this.
I think most countries are agreeing with me. They actually, many of them have actually apologized. They said, look, we have taken advantage.
When it comes to how well politicians understand economics and the market, they don't. Right? These are completely separate things. Politicians operate by votes and by numbers on spreadsheets. The market and businesses are so complicated, even economists are confused by them sometimes, and it's kind of our job to know in depth about the economy. So I really am quite concerned that people like Trump think they know what is best in the national interest from an economic point of view. They're not ever able to understand this stuff. So they're going to act on instinct, and this is an instinctual move, these tariffs, but we're going to see long-lasting, very varied effects, negative effects on the American economy and probably the world economy as well. So there's a total disconnect. I don't think he knows what he's doing in this instinct, huge amount. So all that bureaucracy and rules. So this is on top of agreements we already have with the US about sharing standards regulation, for example. So that's one layer of bureaucracy. Second layer of bureaucracy you've got to get through is filling out all the paperwork, and you can talk to a lot of businesses in the UK who are concerned about trade with Europe and the amount of paperwork they've got to fill out for that, for HMRC. So this is going to add a whole other area to fill out forms for the IRS in the US, right? So what I'm urging UK politicians to do is don't listen to the Liberal Democrats who want to put up retaliatory tariffs. Don't listen to the EU who wants to do the same. Do not raise tariffs on the US, because all a tariff is, it is an increase in cost for UK consumers if we put it on. And we don't want to do that. It's a tax raise.
The European Union is very, very bad to us. They treat us very, very badly. They don't take our cars. They don't take our cars at all. They don't take our farm products, essentially. They don't take very much. We have a $350 billion deficit with the European Union. They treat us very, very badly. So they're going to be in for tariffs.
Is the great sun reader in danger? Not entirely. They will see an increase in costs when it comes to these tariffs, but when we look at the taxes in general, you should be writing to your MP and making yourself very clear you're worried about the incoming tax changes. NICs going up. Obviously that stamp duty relief has just ended. Hopefully the government see sense on that and they try and push for an extension down the line. The pensions will be safe. There are some really good pension reforms the markets are working with at the moment that was inherited from the last government. Hopefully that continues. But yes, things are going to get a little bit more tricky over this period, and Donald Trump is not going to help. Famously, quite late 90s, he said, it's the way you impose tariffs. So you say, oh, well, I'm going to impose a tariff if that's okay with you. You don't get anything back. Whereas now he is kind of grabbing the markets by the proverbial by just going straight for it, essentially declaring a trade war. And he's going to try and get concessions off other countries. For the UK, he's not going to get much off us. We already have a large trade surplus with the US, but that's in goods and services, depending if you ask the ONS or US trade officials. But the EU are already thinking putting up retaliatory tariffs, which is going to really, really hurt the UK because we're stuck wedged in the middle. In terms of goods, we export about £2.5 billion worth of more goods to the US than we import from them. So that's actually mainly highly specialised machinery and cars. The US is a big car market. We export a large amount of our vehicles to the US, but also very specialist, high-grade machinery that the US just simply cannot make and doesn't have the skills to. So that's what we call a trade surplus. That's for goods. And then for services, we export a significant amount of services. We're in London at the moment, the city behind us. That's a lot of export in finance, construction, construction services, accountancy, insurance, you name it. We really do export a lot. That's not including all of the overseas territories where US companies use as tax havens. I don't think it will trigger a recession, no. It will knock growth down. So the OBR looked at this during Rachel Reeves' spring statement. They said that, knock 1% off GDP growth this year. Now we're only going to grow by 1% of GDP. So I think it will just keep us above the margin, essentially, of entering a recession. However, it's just really, really bad policy from the Trump government. And it's quite concerning because he always said, I love the UK, I want to trade with the UK on a free trade deal. And he's completely reversed on tone. This is the weird thing about economics, is that, there is never an end game to any economics. Things are always changing. His administration knows that. I think what he wants is to onshore as much manufacturing capability to those kind of flyover states, his key states in the US, and ensure that jobs are going up, to ensure that, wages are rising and that there's more job security. In many ways, it's kind of like Securenomics in Rachel Reeves' Securenomics in the UK. She's trying to basically provide really good basis for workers in the UK. So Trump, both of them are wrong in how they're going about that. And I think for Trump, the tariff route, the protectionist route is going to end in disaster. We know that tariffs increase unemployment. We know that it hurts American consumers and American businesses, and fundamentally it's going to hurt American growth. If you look at the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ today and yesterday, markets are down. Businesses don't like it and they're losing confidence in that administration. For the UK, it's not helping, but he was elected by the American people, and he's going to try and do his best by the American people. Thing is, though, with this move, he's not going to do best by the American people. They're going to suffer from this. It's going to be really difficult. So I wouldn't call him dangerous. I think that's the wrong word. I think it's going to be economically disadvantageous for America and for us. I don't think it's the end of the world here, but I do think that we need to really try and secure our relationship with the Americans and not try and move too closely to the EU, which over-regulates and has its own very serious trade problems with the rest of the world. Keir Starmer can do a couple of things about this. He needs to fly to Washington, probably tomorrow, and really try and get an injunction put in place, really re-emphasise the Anglo-American relationship and make sure that he knows that the trade surplus that the UK has is quite small in goods and it's not going to affect American jobs, and really re-emphasise the case that Britain's economy is strong and it's there to help the American people, especially in the manufacturing sector. I think he needs to make that emphasis. Second thing that he can do, he can turn around to the UK public, have a really honest conversation with the UK public, say this is what you're likely to expect, here's what we're going to do to solve that problem. So I think he needs to have a better communication strategy with the British people, because at the moment you have an economist or a think tank explaining to your readers what's going on and not the Prime Minister, even though I'm not in control of a ginormous trade surplus with the UK. He needs to be much clearer in his communication with the British people and give confidence to the markets.